Amidst the splendor of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania's largest city, renowned for its rich history, stand-tall buildings, renowned universities, and magnificent cultural centers. But behind the shadows of the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall, a harsh reality lurks that reflects a profound societal wound: the ongoing and worsening homelessness crisis. Every morning on the sidewalks around the Center City District or under the Interstate 676 overpass, we see makeshift tents, worn sleeping bags, and individuals struggling to survive the harsh weather. These are the homeless, people who have lost their homes, their jobs, or even their hopes. The statistical reality: Philadelphia has the highest poverty rate among major cities in the United States. According to data from the Philadelphia Office of Homeless Services, OHS, more than 5,700 people experience homelessness each year. Although Philadelphia is known for its progressive housing-first approach compared to other cities, many remain without permanent housing. Around 950 people sleep on the streets or in uninhabitable places every night. Behind these numbers lie diverse stories. Some have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Others suffer from untreated mental illness, and still others are fleeing domestic violence. Many are military veterans, LGBTQ+ youth evicted from their homes, or single parents unable to pay rent. Complex causes. Homelessness in Philadelphia is not caused by a single factor. It is the result of a combination of a housing crisis, structural poverty, limited access to mental health services, and an often inadequate social welfare system. The rapidly rising cost of living has also left many previously well-off residents living in uncertainty. Average rents in Philadelphia have risen significantly over the past decade. For those living on minimum wage, even renting a studio apartment is a challenge. Coupled with the lack of affordable housing units and high property prices, more and more people are being marginalized from the system. Life on the street. Being homeless in Philadelphia means living in fear, uncertainty, and often without shelter. Extreme winter weather can be a silent killer for those sleeping outside. Many rely on food from soup kitchens, charities, and aid from civil society. Some areas, like Kensington Avenue, have become symbols of a broader crisis. There, homeless people live side by side with drug addicts, forming an invisible yet scarred community. These areas frequently make media headlines for their war zone-like conditions. Needles are strewn about, overdoses occur in public, and government intervention is often inadequate or inadequately targeted. Government and community efforts. The city of Philadelphia has implemented several programs to address this crisis. Programs like rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and trauma-informed approaches are part of the city's strategy. The city has also established a homeless outreach team that actively reaches out to homeless people on the streets and connects them with shelters or health services. However, government efforts have not always been smooth sailing. Shelters are often overcrowded, and not all homeless people feel safe living there. Some complain of violence, theft, or a lack of privacy. Nonprofit organizations, churches, and community volunteers play a significant role in providing food, clothing, and emotional support to those on the margins. Hope remains amidst the gloom. There are still glimmers of hope. Stories of formerly homeless people who have risen above the crowd and become advocates for their communities are inspiring. Initiatives such as the construction of tiny homes, job training, and ongoing mental health support are beginning to show positive results. Local communities, activists, and ordinary citizens are increasingly recognizing that this crisis is not just an individual problem, but a shared one that requires collective solutions. Philadelphia, with its history of struggles for freedom and justice, now faces a significant moral challenge. Can the city demonstrate that human values are still alive in public policy and everyday life? The homeless are not just statistics. They are part of society. They have names, stories, and hopes. They are not simply problems to be eliminated, but human beings in need of support and justice. The morning was still shrouded in a thin mist when the sound of a SEPTA train passing over the tracks shattered the silence of Philadelphia's streets. Behind a corner of the sidewalk near Suburban Station, a man named Marcus rolled up his thin blanket and prepared to face another day, one like the ones before, filled with uncertainty and a struggle for survival. Marcus wasn't alone. In the city known as the birthplace of American independence, more than 5,000 people like Marcus were homeless. They slept in makeshift tents, in city parks, under bridges, and even in empty train cars and abandoned buildings. The city, filled with symbols of freedom, instead bore silent witness to hundreds of lives trapped in a cycle of poverty and indifference. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania's largest city, is a place where great history and social inequality coexist. On one side, prestigious universities, world-class hospitals, and magnificent museums stand. But just a few blocks away, rows of small tents serve as home for many homeless people. It was there that the city's other face became clearly visible. Cause and effect. The phenomenon of homelessness in Philadelphia is not the result of a single cause. It is the result of a long series of systemic failures. A severe housing crisis, mass layoffs, crushing inflation, limited access to mental health services, and the persistent social stigma attached to those who fall into poverty. Rents in the city continue to skyrocket, while incomes remain stagnant. Many low-income residents are forced out of work due to their inability to pay rent. Existing social security systems are often not fast enough or effective enough to handle the new wave of homelessness. In many cases, the homeless struggle not only with weather and hunger, but also with past trauma, addiction, and lingering shame. Forgotten stories. Beyond statistics and official reports, the homeless are people with stories. Like Sarah, a 28-year-old single mother who fled domestic violence and now lives in a shelter with her 2 children. Or James, a war veteran suffering from PTSD and unable to access adequate mental health treatment. Every face on the street carries wounds and hopes that are often invisible to those who pass by in a hurry. On Kensington Avenue, one of the hardest hit areas, the daily scenes are heartbreaking. People sleep on the sidewalks, shivering, some struggling with the opioid addiction that plagues many American cities. Philadelphia has become one of the epicenters of the opioid crisis, and its impact has significantly exacerbated the homeless situation. Government and community response. The city government has not been idle. Through the Office of Homeless Services, OHS, various initiatives have been launched. Programs like Housing First seek to provide housing first, followed by additional services like therapy, job training, and rehabilitation. Some shelters like the Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission or Prevention Point provide temporary shelter, though their capacity is limited and sometimes does not meet standards of comfort or safety. The problem is that the government's approach is often reactive rather than preventative. Meanwhile, many nonprofit organizations and religious groups play a significant role in providing free food, clothing, and medical treatment. However, without synergy and comprehensive structural solutions, these efforts are merely patchwork. The public is divided on their views on the homeless. Some sympathize and help, but many consider their presence a nuisance to the city. Some downtown business owners even urge the government to clear business areas of homeless tents, as if the problem can be wiped out simply by banishing them. Undying hope. However, amidst this darkness, a small glimmer of light continues to shine. Some have managed to emerge from their predicament thanks to a caring community. There are stories of survivors who have become advocates, volunteers, and agents of change. They prove that when given the opportunity, everyone has the potential to rise. Philadelphia is a city that has undergone many changes throughout its history. From the Revolution to the modern era, it has continually adapted. Today, the challenge is no longer simply building tall buildings or attracting investment, but building real and equitable social justice. Behind the skyscrapers, museums, and sports stadiums, there is another world that often goes unseen. That world is filled with people like Marcus, Sarah, and James, human beings who don't need pity, but opportunity and recognition of their dignity. Perhaps one day, Philadelphia will truly be a city of brotherly love, a city that not only prides itself on its history, but also demonstrates its love for all, without exception. In the dark corners of Philadelphia, as the city lights fade and the night traffic slowly fades, there are still faint, barely audible voices. The voices of hunger, the voices of despair, and the voices of hearts that no longer know their way home. Among the high-rise buildings and luxury apartments, hundreds, if not thousands of souls live in the shadows, without homes, without shelter, without a tomorrow. Every night, the city parks that should be places to relax are transformed into rows of worn mats and cardboard boxes stacked to resemble beds. One of them is a middle-aged man named Elijah. He was once a hard-working factory worker, father of two, and loving husband. But when the factory where he worked went out of business, his life began to crumble. Losing his job left him unable to pay the rent. His wife left with their children, and from that moment on, Elijah lost everything. Except one thing: the deep shame of failing to provide for his family. Near the subway station, there's also a young girl named Lila. She's only 17 years old. She ran away from home because she couldn't stand her stepfather's nightly beatings. Philadelphia had been a hope for her, a place where she could start a new life. But the reality was far crueler than her dreams. She slept under bridges, often went hungry for days, and occasionally had to beg on the cold streets, her eyes swollen and her body shivering in the cruel winter. There were no warm hugs, no friendly greetings, just cold, hunger, and the indifferent stares of passers-by. Many of these homeless people aren't lazy or unwilling to work. Some are mentally scarred war veterans, suffering from PTSD and having nowhere to turn. Others are victims of an unfair housing system, uncontrolled rent increases, or untreated mental health issues. And many have drifted into a cycle of drugs because they don't know how else to survive. Philadelphia, a city once known for its spirit of freedom and justice, now faces a harsh reality. More and more of its citizens are being displaced, unheard, and forgotten. Beneath the glittering city hides a dark world, waiting to be seen and cared about. Amidst the piles of cardboard boxes and food scraps in the trash, there are unheard cries, unanswered prayers, and fading hopes. They don't ask for much, just a little attention, a warm loaf of bread, and a place to call home. But for many of them, that's still too far out of reach. And so it goes every night in Philadelphia, a city that never truly sleeps, but also often forgets to dream about those who live in the darkness of reality. Philadelphia, a city rich in history and culture, is known as the birthplace of American democracy, home to the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. But beneath the grand buildings, urban murals, and bustling streets lies a grim reality that often goes unnoticed: the lives of the homeless. Every morning, as the sun begins to lift the chilly fog, hundreds of people begin to move through the city's corners, sleeping under bridges, on park benches, or lying on cardboard-covered sidewalks. They are not just passing silhouettes. They are individuals with stories, hopes, and often tragic pasts. Philadelphia is one of the largest cities in the United States, with a high rate of homelessness. According to data from the Office of Homeless Services, thousands of people live without a permanent home each year, and hundreds of them are forced to sleep on the streets due to a lack of shelter. This problem didn't emerge suddenly. It stems from deep roots: structural poverty, a housing crisis, unemployment, untreated mental health issues, and addiction. One heartbreaking story is that of Marcus, a 47-year-old man who used to work as a carpenter. After a work accident left him unable to continue his profession, he lost his job, then his home. Without adequate health insurance and no family to take him in, Marcus fell into a life on the streets. He slept in subway stations and occasionally scavenged food from fast food restaurant dumpsters. When winter arrived, the cold Philadelphia winds could be a death sentence for those without shelter. There was also the story of Lisa, a single mother with 2 young children. She fled a violent domestic relationship only to find herself homeless. Shelters for families were often full, and Lisa was forced to sleep in her car, which was eventually towed away for failing to pay her taxes. She cried every night, not from hunger, but from her inability to protect her children from this harsh life. Charities, churches, and volunteers were working tirelessly to provide assistance. Soup kitchens, mobile clinics, and night shelters operated throughout the city. However, this assistance was insufficient to address the much larger and more complex problems. City governments have tried a variety of approaches, from short-term housing programs to rehabilitation services to mental health counseling. However, existing systems are often too slow and too limited, while the number of homeless continues to grow. There's a painful irony as one walks down Benjamin Franklin Parkway. On one side of the street stand opulent museums and libraries. On the other, rows of small tents serve as homes for those who have lost everything. These tents are not part of a festival, but rather a stark symbol of the humanitarian crisis in modern society. Philadelphia, like many other American cities, faces a major challenge: how to become a truly inclusive city, one that not only celebrates its history of freedom, but also guarantees a fundamental freedom, the right to adequate housing for all its citizens. Homelessness is not simply about homelessness. It is a reflection of a social system that fails to protect the most vulnerable. Behind the statistics and official reports, there are wounded lives, voices rarely heard. They don't ask for luxury. They simply want opportunity, the chance to stand on their feet, to work, to live with dignity, and to feel safe. As long as their voices go unheard and their suffering continues to be ignored, the city will not truly be a home for all.